Hello, folks. Everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah? Perfect. Thank you. Sorry we're running a little bit late. I think we got the times a bit wrong, but that's okay. First of all, this is Craig. I'm Bob. We're from Jigsaw's DevSecOps team. And we build tools to help our customers with Jamp, with Intune, with Kanji, and with lots of other kind of Mac-related and Windows-related jobs. What we're here to talk about today is macOS Endpoint Security Framework. Does everybody know what that is? I see one hand up.
One.
Cool. That's good. That's useful, because if you all knew this would be a little bit pointless. So on here we've got a link to Apple's documentation, which is Apple's documentation. I don't know if you've ever tried to read through any of the developer docs they've written. It's interesting. I think Craig has spent a very long time trying to figure these out. But in short, this is Apple's newish API for security monitoring on macOS. There's a lot of information available in this. And really, it's designed to help with security monitoring. So a lot of the antivirus tools will use it. And there's a huge amount of different events that we can watch and we can see come through it. An awful lot of data is passed through this tool. Has anybody ever seen any of the ESF stuff? Or ever looked at Jamf Protect logs?
I'm just going to add that it allows you to authorize events as well. So you've got two types: notify, which is an event that's already happened, and you've also got authorize, where the API will say, should this event actually happen? So you get control over that.
So if anybody has looked through any of the logs from tools like Jamf Protect, you'll see a lot of this data. So last year we spoke about a product at Macaduck called Elevate 24 and our Insights tool. So Elevate 24 is designed to give just-in-time admin access on macOS. And the first thing people asked us was, what do people do when they get elevated? So you get admin rights on your machine. What happens now? And we couldn't really see that information just through the way Apple did logging. It was very hard to get a real sense of what was happening. And the next question that came, as Craig mentioned, was we wanted to be able to stop people doing specific things. So for example, when you've elevated as an admin, we don't want you to be able to run a sudo command in terminal, perhaps, or open a specific app, like keychain access, for example. And the other thing we ran into was obviously we are an MSP, so we have these events across multiple customers. A lot of the kind of ways we looked at this data, it was all designed to be looked at on device. And we needed a way to be able to see it for everyone in one go and start to look at trends and spot problems. So what we'll do, if you've not seen what the ESF data looks like, I think we've got a little demo of that Craig's going to talk to.
Yeah, so Apple provided a tool called ESLogger. It's not intended to be used for anything production, just to actually show the events coming in. On this Mac, I've got literally two applications open, and I'm looking for open file events and write file events, and you can see there's a lot of data. So you've got to be able to process that, which brings us on to why we built this. This is an example of an event. We get the type of event. So in this case, at the top, we've got ES event type notify open, which is just a file opening. We've got the file path that has been opened there, timestamps, the executable that initiated that command, that open command, should I say. PPIDs and stuff, process IDs. You can actually get a chain of the app that caused that event. And there are certain requirements you have to meet to be able to use this. Not every developer can do this, so you need a developer account. You then have to request an entitlement for this. Do that in good time, because there can be delays in getting that back from Apple. If you did want to try it out, you can use it with SIP disable, but there's obviously lots of problems around that.
Please don't do that. Please don't disable SIP. That's not good.
Yeah.
Someone should shout out in your organization if you disable SIP on a device. But yeah, it is the only way to see it without the entitlement, and then break your machine horribly if you're not careful.
Absolutely. When I first started looking at it, it was kind of hard to get started with it. So I put together a little example, which there's not many lines of code in there, and it'll just get you started with seeing these events on my GitHub page. And also the binary needs to have full disk access. So if you launch it and you get errors, that's why. And we've got a little bit of code that sort of, for those of you that are into code, Swift code, you can see how relatively easy it is to get started. So we create a client, and we then choose where to process the events. So you create the client, and then you just pass off a function to process that when it comes in. And then you choose your event types that you want to subscribe to, and it's literally just an array you pass through and just say open auth execute, which triggers every time an application is executed. And then a little bit showing the processing. So switch between the types of event we receive, file open or a execute. And on the file open on this, I'm just pulling out a few fields like the file path and the process path. But there's lots of others you can get, which back to the previous slide you could see. And then this is for a authentication, authorized event, sorry, not authentication. And then you can do some processing on it, very basic. So like if the sign-in ID of the app is unwanted app, we return a deny or an authorize. One thing to bear in mind with this, you have to respond to these events in a timely fashion. If you don't, the macOS system will kill your application straight off, and then it will restart again. And then got another one there, and it's looking at because we also see the arguments. So one of the examples I use that is if we want to stop users unloading a launch daemon, they can open launch control, but they can't pass through unload, say, or boot out, and look for that, and then deny that. Okay.
Okay, so that's how it works. What we've done with this is we've built an application that we can actually collect this data from, so use it in real life. So it's a background app, runs just as an agent on the device, and it basically follows that framework that Craig's just shown you. That's how it works. There's a lot of configuration options for this one, as you can imagine. There's a lot of possible settings to make, and again, some of these settings can be quite dangerous. It is possible to stop any application running or some core application that you really need running, or deny access to files that macOS will need. This is quite...
I've definitely not locked myself out my own Mac.
No,
definitely
never.
Not.
No,
Yeah.
we'd never do such a thing, obviously. But so this is one of these ones where testing and setting this up is a little bit tricky. Unfortunately, because of the nature of it, there isn't a hard and fast set of rules, because it depends exactly what you want to do. But there's a lot of possible options on this one. We can block applications, which I said was one of the key things we were asked for, and this is why this all came around. One of the key things for us, as I mentioned earlier, was being able to offload all of the events. So we can send these to a SIEM tool or any kind of logging platform over HTTP. We think this is probably the best. Just the volume of data, I think having it just as a log file or something, I don't think you can really get any insight from it. Much better to be in a platform where you can start to do some analysis, like for Microsoft Sentinel, for example, ideal for looking at security events and watching for unpleasant activity. And the bottom line is probably the most important one, that we're going to make this tool available for free on GitHub, so you guys can actually have a play with it and see what you think. It is in beta at the moment. If you lock yourself out your Mac, phone Craig, it's all good. But we'll be able to, on GitHub, you can log issues and questions and stuff just through the GitHub normal kind of interaction stuff. And we'll keep an eye on that, because it is still a work in progress. We're rolling this out to our estate. We've got it on quite a few machines now. We're rolling it out statewide now, so we're going to be finding these bugs ourselves. But obviously, as always from the community, feedback's appreciated. Thoughts and ideas are important. What we've got is a few slides just showing some of the config. We're not going to dwell on it too much because I think it would probably take us another couple hours to go through all the config for it, but worth having a quick look at this.
There is documentation on GitHub, by the way, on that, so yeah.
No, you just got to figure it out yourself, so it'll be fine.
To make it easier, I've created a profile creator manifest that you can use with iMazing or Profile Manager, whichever you suit. I've not put that out public yet. I've got to request that, so that will happen soon. So at the moment, you just have to add it manually. Pretty self-explanatory, those. We could choose what event types we want to collect, or just choose all. Filtering out messages, because there's a lot on the Mac that just happens in the background and you don't really care about it. So we do have some default filters built in, but you can also add your own as well. Yeah. File operation rules. So this is where the auth part of it. At the moment, we're restricting file operations like open, write, read only as well. So you can set a file to read only, and even if the user is root, they still can't edit that file. We've got execute process rules, so we can block applications by sign-in ID, by team ID, or path. You can also team up allow and block, so you can make conditions to allow certain apps to run a process, but block a user running it. And then we can upload the data, as Bob said, to Sentinel or to other places. This is our version of ES Logger. So it will run locally and let you view the data that's in there that's being collected. It's just really intended just to testing or initial deployment, just to try out. Oh, just try it out, yeah. And displays all the events in there. It's got a very basic search feature in there as well. We can archive events locally on the device as well. Yeah, I don't think there's anything else to say on that.
It's worth thinking for the sending it to your SIEM tool. It can, if you've got this rolled out to a lot of devices, this can be a huge amount of data because it depends what your device is up to as to how much data it is. So it's hard to even say, you know, it's this amount per device per day. It could be a vast amount if your device is doing lots of stuff, or if it's, I think you pointed out, I think you've got like a gig of data from a machine that was asleep over the weekend.
Yeah.
You know, so there's a lot going on here, so be careful with the rules and try and figure out exactly what it is you want to see.
I disabled the filters on that one, but
yeah, you know, so it can be a lot of data. So it's one just to watch out, especially depending on your SIEM tool. What you don't want to do is get a massive bill for storing loads of data that you don't really need.
Yeah.
Again, just one to watch out for and test on this one because there's a lot going on here.
You can't see on there, unfortunately, but they're just sudo commands that we've logged into Sentinel and pulled out. Yeah. Apologies, it's not resized very well.
Yeah, it's just an example sumo dashboard for that one. Sentinel, sorry. Sumo logic we use for other stuff. Okay. So back to Elevate, because this was the whole point of this originally. So Elevate was the whole reason we started down this road, but it made sense to have these as two separate tools because the ESF one feels like there's a lot of benefit in it, just as a standalone thing. But for Elevate, what we've got in our internal dashboard, so this is the dashboards for customers of Elevate, can start to see this data now surfaced up. So Elevate, that's not sending it to somebody else's SIEM tool, this is sending it to our SIEM tool, to the cat, which then is fronted up through our Ella platform in the dashboards.
I think that is a video, actually.
Oh, sorry, it's a video, I forgot.
Yeah, so we're pulling out information on applications that have been have changed during the elevation session, and also any blocked events that happened, and any shell commands, we can see what they've run there as well.
So from Elevate, this data can be sent off to a SIEM tool, but this is our internal kind of dashboard tools for it.
A file tree on changes that have been made. You can view individual events within there as well, and you get the whole raw data on that all events tab.
Again, quite a lot of information, and really kind of our thinking is, different audiences for different types of view of this. So for this view, it's intended for, I want to go and investigate this one machine. If you're looking at your whole estate for stuff, we would suggest a SIEM tool, again, be the best option, just because volume of data. That's just one short example, but that, again, could be a huge amount of data to have to sift through per device by hand. So again, the SIEM tool would be the best option. And really, that's it from us. It's fairly short, fairly sweet, but hopefully quite useful. What we've got on here is another link back to the Apple documentation, and a couple of bits and pieces we've used to help us out along the way, and a link to the example that Craig mentioned, and a link to download the Monitor app. All the documentation and all the bits and pieces you need are on the GitHub page. So really, if anyone has any questions, I guess. Quick question over here.
So the crossover to existing tools, what was your rationale to go into that? Was it more monitoring, but you have the blocking capability?
Yeah, it actually just came from conversations with people. So the reason for wanting to do the monitoring and the blocking was just that's what people were asking us for. So when we launched Elevate initially, the reporting was just reason and length of time. That was all, because that's what the app actually shows. But the first question we started to get asked was, what else is going on? So it made sense to just look at the best way to come up with that data. And we tried a few different ways, but this was the only way to get any sensible data that wasn't hugely onerous on the machine to process. So going through things like all the logs and everything we could do, but then the Elevate app would spend forever doing that between sessions, and it was a lot of processor usage and stuff that we didn't really need.
And another question as a follow-up, how do you account for the caching that is needed when it has a sloppy connection or device is offline? Because it's enormous data that gets created, and if you want to send this out to the SIEM system, it's taxing.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So it's stored on the device, obviously. So if there's no network connection, it will retain it, and then it will try and upload that the next time the connection's up, and it will do it piecemeal. It won't try to do it all in one hit if there's a lot of data. So all being well, it should catch up.
Do you compress the data locally, or how do you store that? I mean, it will be in the code, but can you share?
It is stored within a database locally, and it's compressed as it's uploaded currently. Okay.
Any other questions? Yes, I don't think I see anybody, no? Okay. Well, that's all from us. We'll leave that on the screen if anybody wants to grab the links, and if you've got any questions, feel free to come and speak to us. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.